So my core belief number one is compassion is important in business and in life. And among the things that I have learned in my career, I have stumbled across and discovered a few ideas that will be helpful for you that caused me to write my book, Let Your Emotional Intelligence Do the Talking. And in the course of our conversation today and our brief time together, I'm going to share you a few techniques and a few ideas to help you get more success in your communications, and you will learn how to improve your emotional intelligence today. When you get my book, you'll get some strategies and some shortcuts. Because of our time together today, we won't be able to go into elaborate discussions or elaborate exercises, but you'll get them all in the book. So, at the end of our time together, I'll give you a link to my free download of my #1 Amazon bestseller called Let Your Emotional Intelligence Do the Talking. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about my story. So I grew up on the Lower East Side of New York. I grew up in what's called public housing. And if you can look very closely, you'll see I'm on the 6th floor of that tall apartment building. All right. Each one of those buildings had approximately 200 to 250 people living in them. So pretty tight, a lot of people. You can't help but develop some type of emotional intelligence with that many people. So that's an important element. From there, I went to Long Island University, and then I went to Columbia University to work on my MBA. In between, I had a retail store in New York City. So I was in a rag trade. For those of you who are entrepreneurs, you know the entrepreneurial journey is pretty tough, isn't it? Yes? So we operated for about 3 years and shut the store down for a whole bunch of different reasons. The first one was undercapitalization, did not plan for 2 burglaries, which happens in New York, and we just ran out of cash, ran out of money, ran out of time. So that took me to reconsidering my journey and my path. I worked for Xerox Corporation for 20 years in a number of locations. The last time that I worked overseas was on the island of Puerto Rico for a good 8 years, and then moved to Rochester, New York from there. So the emotional intelligence model I'm going to share with you is right here. Not difficult. There are 4 components. Let me describe them to you briefly. You have personal competence, which we all have. And then under personal competence, you'll see what I see, which has to do with self-awareness. We've seen presentations where people are teaching and learning and trying to convey knowledge, but it all starts with identifying what I call the gap. And the gap has to do with the difference between self-awareness and other people's opinions of you. I'm sure you all can relate that your self-awareness is generally rated higher. But when you ask other people to opine on what they see of you and how you interact with them, you get a difference of opinion. That's called the gap. I help people manage that gap. So self-awareness is important. Self-management. Once we do that, you're going to get self-management. You'll be trained. You'll get the specific opportunities to develop a plan, which I work with you very specifically to develop, to get you through the hurdle so you can develop some skills around that kind of gap analysis. From there, we go into social competence. Now, social competence, how many of you can remember the last event that you attended, networking event, festive event, holiday party, where you noticed that certain people seem to interact better than others? That's called social competence. That is teachable, it is learnable, and nothing to be afraid of. I work with a number of people who say, but Miguel, I can't work with this environment. I don't know how to operate. I don't know how to talk. You know what those people need? Some confidence boosting ideas to help them get over the hurdle. That's what I do. And then the last component is relationship management. In 2017 and beyond, the most important element that people are concerned about is how good of a relationship can I have with my clients? And if you develop the skills around relationship management, people will want to work with you, call you up, and understand that you are the best and only solution for what they need. So, here are some examples of emotional intelligence where it's lacking. If a person is self-centered, have you ever met any of those people? I think you have, all right? They kind of jump out at you very quickly in the engagement, in the conversation. And those people, you generally repel you. Would that be true? You repel from those people. or a person that doesn't appreciate the problems or the concerns of others. Another key element, particularly in larger organizations where people are working cross-functionally to develop products, services, and to develop themselves. Or, here's another one, number 3, does not have the time nor interest in quality listening. Now, how many of you can remember the last time someone approached you? Maybe this morning, maybe over lunch, and they start the question this way. Got a minute? Well, you know what happens when they say, got a minute, right? It's like you're at it for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So what would be a good way, and I'm going to share with you a strategy right now. Here's a good way to acknowledge the person, acknowledge the situation, and respect your time and their time. Just say, you know, Miguel, in the interest of helping you the best I can, I don't have a minute at this moment, but I do have a half hour later this afternoon on my calendar. Can we reschedule this conversation for later, like 5 p.m.? If we can do that, I can be of better service to you. Now, that strategy works consistently and always, except for one time. And you've got to ask the right question. Here's the question. Does this situation right now require emergency action? If no one's dying, there is no fire drill, and nobody's going to the hospital, it probably can wait. Is that a good idea? Absolutely. So, another example, people. They're not well liked, and you know who they are. They alienate team members. They don't play nice in the playpen. They don't conform to the group norms, etc. Now, what I have found in time in working with a number of clients, those last 2 are the responsibility of the leadership, the hiring team. Because when you hire somebody, you have to test for those things. Now, I meet a number of entrepreneurs and people who say, well, I go with my gut. Well, the gut is about 1 of 7 items you should take a look at when hiring an employee. It is not the only thing, but you shouldn't dismiss it. So I do encourage that. So here's what happens with people with high EQ. 90% of top performers are high in EQ. EQ is responsible for 58% of your job performance, especially in teams. And people who are high on EQ earn about $29,000 a year more than those that don't. By the way, you can add a 0 to that. If you're working with million-dollar companies or billionaires, just add some zeros. It's true. People with high EQ will out-earn and outperform those that don't have high EQ. So this is the USS Constellation, CV-64. And the reason I know that is because I got a phone call when I lived in the Caribbean, that island I showed you earlier, from CV-64, from the executive officer of that lovely ship. 5,000 people living on the ship defending our country. And so here was the question from the executive officer. We're coming into port in St. Thomas in about 2 days. We're 2 days out. We got about 50 machines here that need repair. Can we count on you to support it? Well, you don't tell the U.S. government you can't. So we figured it out. And I want you to take a look at that example from the standpoint of emotional intelligence. I could have gone a whole bunch of different ways. I could have overreacted. I could have been numb. I could have been frozen and said, you have how many? So I analyzed the situation, gathered my technical organization, and flew some people off to the island of St. Thomas to service that ship. Here's the key component of it. I got a phone call from one of our techs from the comm department. So communications is very important to our fighting fleet. And we didn't have the part. We didn't have the part for this machine. And so I asked the technician, well, where's the part? And he says to me, it's in Rochester, New York. It's on the manufacturing line. And for a moment I paused and wanted to say, oh my. And so what happened is, I got the information, I spoke to the XO, and here is where I learned my first lesson at age 27 of out-of-the-box thinking. I learned that you need to oftentimes involve the patient or the client in the solution, in their own solution. So here's what the executive officer said. I don't have the part. I can't get it to you overnight until tomorrow. He said, well, where's the part? I said, Rochester, New York. He said, well, I've got a crew member, I've got the aircraft, and I'll be there in 2.5 hours. We got everything turned around in 5 hours. Key lesson for me, think out of the box. So, you too can move in about 6 hours to that type of thinking expanded and get better at what you do. How? By participating in a number of trainings that I've got. Now, this training is for people and or organizations struggling with relationships affecting productivity and performance metrics. I've worked with a lot of people that have disengaged and disconnected associates, business partners, and employees. There's a reason for that, and we can help you fix that. And the last point is, can you think of a time when you wished you made better decisions with better results from your communications? If that is you, then you're a part of the people that can benefit from my assistance. So my ideal client is looking for results orientation. They want to increase and improve. Fill out the dots on there, whatever you need, we can get it. And most importantly, time is a limiting factor. So they're suffering from time compression. They want it, and they want it now. So here's a specific example of what happens when you have EQ. You'll see the blue is before, and the red kinda is after. So decision makers at FedEx were able to improve influence as one of their key metrics by using EQ techniques and technologies. Decision making went up, effectiveness went up, relationships went up, which is very important when you're dealing with clients, quality of life and health. The statistics have been borne out over time. Here's another example in the area specific to sales, L'Oreal. I'm sure you've all heard of L'Oreal, a large sales organization. Look at the effects of EI training. The blue shows when you train, 7.1% increase September, 15 in October, and 13 in November. Again, 1 quarter, but the proof of concept is there. So through the implementation of EQ and 360 assessments, that's how we help get you there. I interpret the results, I help you develop your own plan, you own it, you execute it with our help, and with my help. So here are the myths. New habits can be shaped in 21 days. False, that's a fiction. New research has shown it takes at minimum 66 days to change and or create a new habit. So, myth number 2. Everyone see that? Here's what we see in the area of IQ. IQ is the primary driver of selection in some organizations. EQ is what's more important, and everything else that lies below the surface. Relationships, very important. I mentioned it earlier in our conversation. Now here's a convergence. So managing relationships means what's required, your needs, and then overlaying my needs. That is an important concentric circle of understanding that will help us get better. The benefits are, as Maya Angelou says, and I love that quote, people will forget what you said and did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. I love that quote, and it's very true. And by the way, we don't always have to agree, we can disagree, but we don't have to be mean-spirited about it. And so from that standpoint, we help you script and think and communicate better and more effectively. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management are the key components of what I teach on in our organization. So what's the secret to greater EI? Improve relationships with friends, family, clients, and business associates that will give you better results while developing mindset, skill sets with the right tools. So here's an example. Everyone know who Jack Welch is? That's Jack Welch's, we used to call him Neutron Jack a long time ago. But he has developed some skills in the area of emotional intelligence and supports it very highly. Here's my link to my free download of my book on emotional intelligence. I encourage you to get it, download it, and begin the conversation. So there's the book, Let Your Emotional Intelligence Do the Talking. And here's how you can get in contact with me whenever you'd like.